Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you are doing well. Today we are doing a bit of a AFL Fantasy Round 3 review. Gonna be a little bit, pardon me, of a different video today because as you can tell, we're not starting on my team. You can see there's a tab there with my team in the top corner because we're going to go through that at the end of the video, what my trade plans are. But what I thought we'd do today is I've got all the tabs here across all 8 games from the week, and I just want to have a look at some players who were pretty good for us last week. I've also got some notes on my laptop, so if you see me sort of glancing back and forward between my notes, and you can see that I'm actually kind of moving around like that at this stage already. So sorry if it's bouncing around too much. I'll probably try and not do that as much for you guys. So let's get into it. Kicking it off with the Port Adelaide and Essendon fixture from last Thursday night. Not heaps to bring home about other than the rise of Christian Moraes. Very, very low break even in this fixture now going into next week. So really low fixture going in this week against St Kilda. I just think he's going to be someone we're going to talk about long term. Connor Rosie, very frustrating, 84. Lots of people, myself included, had the VC on Rosie this week. Again, historical data against Essendon was fantastic. The Port Adelaide's record at Marvel, fantastic. But Durham did a very, very good job and also went and scored 95 himself. So not bad from Sam Durham in that one. Jace Burgoyne, 100% time on ground, which is good to see, and 10 marks on the wing. Someone who's really started the year really, really hot. Again, priced in the 700s, though, probably not what I'm particularly looking at. This game also was the Miles Bergman show. What you'll see is there'll be games where it'll be Lockie Evans, and there'll be games where it's Kane Farrell, and there'll be games where it's Miles Bergman. As a Port supporter, I wouldn't be touching the Port halfbacks unless you're in draft. Other than that, nothing crazy. Zach Reed, 83, fantastic. And I think Jackson Pryor with a 72. So if you had him, fantastic. Josh Sin, I brought him in Supercoach. He scored an 80-odd in Supercoach. Again, he had, 18 touches, 4 marks. He's someone who I actually quite like moving forward. So that's pretty much it from Thursday's game. Let's kick it off into Friday. Libba's the one that hurts the most. If you've been here from preseason, you would have seen Libba in lots of my preseason team reveals. I changed a few things last minute ahead of the Richmond-Carlton game, or even round 0, I should say, but Libba's the one that's hurt me. He's gone 2 low hundreds, then a 142, priced at just under $1 million. Should have gone there over Will Ashcroft, but it is what it is. Tom De Koning, 130. Most managers or most coaches have him in their sides if they're super engaged, so he's not a huge differential. Sam Davidson, you're going to find out why this score annoys me. He's in my team, but was on my bench this week. George Hewitt, very, very nice to see. Timmy English with a 99. Solid. Same with Sam Darcy, but how many goals did he kick? He kicked 2 goals this week and had 8 marks. Very, very good option. Matt Kennedy, 94. I just wish the role was more midfield for him because he could be a very, very good scorer. Adam Chera, 83, probably par for what he's been doing lately. Nothing else that's super fantasy relevant other than Riley Sanders there, 73. Really, really frustrating. Didn't have him going into round 0 and then pivoted him back in to make my forward line look a little bit stronger. Quite disappointing. He had the 24 touches, but only 2 marks and 3 tackles, and he's just not getting the midfield time that I thought he would. 70% time on ground. I think it might be time to go. Jack Silvani's been a good starting option, but that's pretty much it from the Carlton Bulldogs game. Let's move into Melbourne and Gold Coast, because Gold Coast Suns right now are playing football that I could easily get behind. Matty Rao looks fantastic. 7 tackles, 5 marks, 36 touches, 129 again, priced at $1 million. Probably too far away from us now in order to take him on in Classic, but, very, very good footballer. John Noble, though, is someone who I want to get one more look this week against the Crows because he could be a very easy option to get to from an SDK. He's only in about the mid-7s, I think, at the moment, maybe high 7s, so you're probably looking at about 100K-ish, maybe 150K from SDK up to a Johnny Noble, where the ball was just going through him completely against Melbourne. 8 marks, 3 tackles, 29 touches and a goal. I mean, you're not signing John Noble. I mean, Dan Rioli still had 20 touches, but not really a big fantasy scorer. John Noble works hard to get those marks, so very much on my radar. Took Miller, Tuke Miller, I should say, 114, playing a lot of half forward, very, very low CBAs. Could be a big point of difference when we get to DPP time, but not looking at him right now. Clary, 108, 31 touches, 6 tackles. If he can just keep going 30 and 5 and a few marks, he's going to score very, very well for us. Jake Bowie, someone who we were talking about on the channel last week. Again, I was a bit worried with May Lever around. Lever ended up being a laid out, not playing. But Jake Bowie still looks really, really good. 6 marks. I think in order for him to keep scoring, he's going to need to keep taking marks. Bailey Humphrey, a lot more midfield time as a forward, could be an option. Max Gawn, disappointing. Christian Petrarca, not as many CBAs as I would have liked from Christian Petrarca. Again, was someone who was in and out of my starting side, so glad I dodged that one. And Harvey Langford looked pretty good as that rookie. There's Dan Rioli, 20 touches, but only the 3 marks and a 63 with no tackles. So I expect to see Rioli kind of bounce around the 90 mark, but he does have quite a much lower floor than Johnny Noble. Saints and Richmond. Jack Sinclair, Nazaya Wanganeen-Millera. This is one big thing I was tossing up between last weekend, and I went with Nazaya. I've had Steele in the past. I've had Sinclair in the past, and he's burnt me. 40 touches, 7 marks, just brilliant. And Richmond just let him do whatever he wanted, which is, annoying to watch. I watched the first quarter, and it was like a 50-point first quarter or something stupid like that compared to Nazaya's 12. So he's done well to get within 20 points of Jack Sinclair. Rowan Marshall looking $1 million. Jack McRae, fantastic. Hugo Garcia saved the Sam Davidson issues, although I lost a head-to-head matchup because I lost by 2 points, and obviously I benched Davidson for Garcia. Short, 6 marks for him, fantastic. I want to start seeing Richmond chip it around a little bit more, which would be nice. Max Hall, 89, we fielded. Other than that, not heaps in this game. Timmy Taranto, really struggling. 20 touches, 13 handballs, 1 mark. When Tim Taranto's up and about, he's taken marks. And right now, Richmond aren't playing a style that they're trying to possess the ball. They're trying to go quick, which is kind of not helping Tim Taranto too much at this stage. Other than that, nothing super fantasy relevant. Toby Travalia, 63, not a bad debut from him out of the vest. But barring that, Angus Hastie's a big red dot for me that we probably need to get rid of. But other than that, nothing major. GWS and Hawthorn. The big talking point here for me is Will Day, 83. He was on 77 going into the last quarter and just does what he does. 3 marks, 2 tackles, 1 goal, 3. Again, that score could have been massive. And he was someone I traded out last week for a Nathan O'Driscoll, who ended up outscoring him, which is fantastic. But Will Day, definitely, I'd be looking at selling him this week if you can. Nothing else super fantasy relevant. I mean, Lockie Whitfield, someone I was looking at pivoting, who I'll talk to you about in a second. But then other than that, in this game, there's nothing more that I'm really looking at long term. I mean, a Tom Green, 31 touches, 9 kicks is a bit disappointing in the 1 mark and 4 tackles. So I'd like to see a little bit more from Tom Green, but definitely someone worth looking at. John Newcomb, 77. Finn McGuinness was... not Finn McGuinness. Finn Callahan tagged to a 57 with only 21 touches. Again, this is the concern with Callahan is the 2 marks, 1 tackle. He's not a stat filler. So you want to see him doing that a little bit more. Stephen Canilio, 15 touches. Again, same sort of thing. Just not getting around enough. And that is all from that game. Tom Stewart. I had him in my team. I was like, I'm going to deal with Perryman and I'm going to deal with Will Day. Stewart was named. I was like, okay, at least he's named. He's going up there. It's fine. Then when he was announced that he wasn't playing, I was trying to edit trades, and the AFL app wasn't letting me, edit the trade from a Tom Stewart into a Will Day to reverse the moves. It was really just they were saying I had to trade a midfielder. It was a bit weird, and I had Campo stupidly locked in my utility, so I couldn't make any moves with any of my bench players to get a defender in there. I had Trainer that already played. I had Zach Reed that already played. It was just I had no flexibility, so I pretty much had to cop the 0 from Tom Stewart, which in best 18 is not fantastic, but it just meant that 3 scores dropped off. I was trying to edit it to potentially go a Wilmot or a Lawson Humphrey because that's all I could really get to. So it would have been nice to get a 76 because that would have counted for me, or a 70 from a Wilmot. Those 2 scores would have counted, which... they're not ideal options to go to from Tom Stewart. The big one for me is I should have just backed my gut pre-season and paid the extra couple K and gone up to Max Holmes, because although he hasn't moved a lot in cash because of his tag game last week, he just looks fantastic playing that midfield role. Zorko is someone who I think I need to start looking at some of these older guys who have a good track record. Like Stewart's not someone with a great track record with his body, but Zorko, since he's moved to halfback, looked fantastic. Well, Ashcroft was fantastic for us. Finally popped a big score and has Richmond this week, so looking forward to that. Bailey Smith at 112 just does what he needs to do. 11 tackles from Baz, fantastic. And really in this game, other than Sam DeConning getting a 66 and being subbed out, again, the conditions weren't favourable. They were losing. They probably needed more leg speed with Nevitt. That's pretty well it from this game on what you would be considering. Again, Nevitt, someone who I'd be probably selling if I had him. Thank God I was able to pivot my trade from Nevitt to O'Driscoll, because O'Driscoll went big, which we'll talk about in a second. Crows and North Melbourne. Caleb Daniel does what he needs to do. Jake Saligo, my draft goat right now, is carrying my midfield. 5 marks, 5 tackles. That's what I want to see from Saligo long term. That was his knock last year, was he wasn't getting the marks and tackles. Isaac Rankin is a huge trade target of mine this week, and we'll go through that in a minute. Jai Simpkin, loving what he's doing at the moment. 7 marks, a tackle, a goal, and 31 touches. That's just brilliant from him. Other than that, she's very, very quiet, moves to half-back and just racks up in the last quarter and manages to get away with a good score of 90. Jordan Dawson, heavy strapping on the calf. The rumour is he's had some tats done on his leg, and that's why he was all strapped up. So we'll see what next week brings. And then the X-Man, again, I don't own Tristan Xerri, and when I saw him grabbing that hamstring, I thought, oh my God, I might be on here for a huge rank rise, because Max Gawn hadn't done a whole lot for me the day before. But he saved a 77, which was fantastic for X. With 1 mark and 4 tackles, he managed to do it with, hit outs 28 and 17 touches. So he's just a beast. I'd expect him to be fit and ready to go for next week. Tom Power underperformed, but again, he's not going to be amazing every week. 4 marks, 3 tackles, no goals. More handball heavy because of probably the pressure from the Crows. And other than that, nothing else really to write home about in this one. And then finally, we've got the Derby. Ryan Marich has a 500k forward, could be a huge downgrade target if you need to generate cash. I do think there's probably enough rookies this week in order to do that. Anyway, Murphy Reid is someone I'm really liking the look of. 19 touches, 5 tackles, 2 behinds. He's been pretty accurate this year as well with his goal kicking. So if that's 1 goal 1, you're looking at a low 80s score, and you're pretty happy with that from Murphy Reid. And I think he's someone we all faded, which is a bit disappointing. But Nathan O'Driscoll, 99 on 83% time on ground, 6 tackles, 4 marks on the wing. Love it. Loving it from Nathan O'Driscoll again. Should have just started with him. I should have gone cheaper in the midfield and gone Nevitt and O'Driscoll, and I would have been in a better spot. But that's where I'm at. Brayshaw and Sarong, fantastic. Luke Jackson, again, looks good. If he just had this role of being the number 1 ruckman, he'd be someone I'd consider. But you look at 35 hit out, 17 touches, a goal, 5 marks, 2 tackles. He's a fantastic footballer, but you just can't pick him with Darcy, who's around the corner. So if you've got Jackson, I'd be looking at a Kieran Briggs. But that is the roundup, or the very, very quick roundup from this week. And now on screen is my side from last week. So as you can see, Nazaya, Short, Freya, DeConning, and Zach Reed's score gets looped on. Trainer, frustratingly, I miss out on the 78 from a Luke Trainer, which would have been fantastic. Just so you can see where I'm at, I was 15k going into the last round, and we've gone into 9-3-5-1. So we've gone 25 into 15 into 9-3. So we're trending in the right direction. Midfield really underperformed this week with the unfortunate 12 from Xavier Lindsay, but it's only reported as a 1 to 2 week injury. Then you've got Dawson, Rosie, Chera, all sort of low to mid 80s. Levi Ashcroft, I'm not expecting him to go amazing every single game, so I'll cop a 58 from him, but his brother 115 was brilliant. Maxi Gawn, after going massive in round 1, really disappointing 2 weeks. Again, has a decent matchup, whether it be SDK, whether it be Stanley. Then into the tough one of Essendon, but then goes Fremantle, Richmond, West Coast. So I'm just going to ride the Gawn train, I think, and be fine with that. And then really in the forward line, I think Davidson just needs to be the locked and loaded F6 for us, potentially F5, but 3 tackles. But he have 10 marks and 31 touches. I just think time to unleash Sam Davidson. He's not going to do that every single week, but at least he can be a 60 to 100. And if he gets anything in between that, then we live with it. Max Hall's probably the one who drops to the bench for me. I guess the Crows game, He had the time on ground, he had the marks, and he had 2 goals. Similar again, he had 8 marks and 2 goals for an 89 this time around, with a few more touches as well. So he didn't give any free kicks away, but he didn't have as many tackles. Again, I think Max Hall's someone who, in a good matchup, who when the Saints are going to be the team on the front foot, he's going to be a very good option because he's that half forward who can convert. Hugo Garcia, again, very reliant on the Jack Steele injury. Again, I don't think St Kilda are going to take him straight out of the rotation with how well he did. You know, racked up the ball, tackled, did everything. His stat line was great. So what did he have? 23 touches, 5 marks, 9 tackles, kicked 2 points as well. He could have easily matched and bettered Davidson. You know, he's left 5 points, or he's left 10 points on the table there. So there's a 120 if he managed to convert those 2 points into goals as well. So that's what I'm at. They were my trades in the end. It was Will Dade Nod, Perryman to Nazaya. Let's look at my team ahead of this deadline. And the trades are Angus Hasty down to, or up to, Christian Moraes. So Christian Moraes, 65% time on ground. He did come on in the first quarter against Richmond and looked really good. Had 6 marks in his first game, and then 7 marks against Essendon. Again, do I expect him to score 90s every week? No. Do I expect him to have a pretty high floor? Yes, because if he's getting 5 to 6 marks a game, that's already locking away some solid points, and he just knows where to run, and he looks a good footballer. He's really gone up 108k in 2 weeks. The other move I'm making is Sanders to Rankin. So you might be saying, what are you going to do with Lindsay? The idea with Lindsay is if Camporeale plays Thursday night, we loop that score. If it's bad, we just sub him out for Moraes into the utility. Because Lindsay being only 1 to 2 weeks away, I think we can just hold him at this stage. I think although his break-even's like 30, break-even's 37. As long as he's fit when he comes back, if he's playing half-back against Essendon or Fremantle, I think he's just going to rack the ball up. Anyway, defence is where I'm looking at upgrades probably from next week. SDK's probably got 1 week left of cash gen at 54 against Melbourne. And then I'd be looking to move him on. And then other than that, my midfield, I'm actually pretty set on the Dawson Rosie, Oliver, Ashcroft, Chera mix. Then I'm pretty happy with a Moraes, Lindsay, Ashcroft and O'Driscoll long term. And then forward line, getting Rankin into massive. Obviously, I'd love to fix up Garcia. Would love to have another look at what he does this week and another look at what Marich does, especially if McGovern's out long term. If McGovern is out long term with this groin, then you don't have to find too much cash to go Garcia to Marich, which could easily be a Finn O'Sullivan, who, again, his break-even's at 26, so he's probably only got 2 weeks left in the side as well. You look at a Riley Bice, if he's named, his break-even isn't massive off the top of my head. So he is definitely someone, he's got a -3 break-even because he popped to 64 and he's playing North. Might want him earlier than expected, but that's, I know Sullivan could be the way we go to a Bice through the utility and then move a Garcia next week, because I don't see many issues. Freya starting to worry me a little bit as well, so I probably want to be looking at upgrading SDK and Freya over the next couple of weeks. In order to do that, we're going to need to move on a Finn O'Sullivan or a Camporeale, or even a Max Hall, even though he's still got, what's he got, -16. Probably can't move him yet. Connor Stone's got a -4, so there's lots of cash gen sitting on our benches at the moment. So we're in a healthy spot. But if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you do if you're in my position, and let me know your thoughts and questions ahead of the round 4 deadline. But once again, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you very, very soon for another video on the channel.